Ariel, they say no bodies ever wash up around here. When people drown or whatever. That they never have. Is that you?" She said nothing. She pushed at the necklace with one jagged nail, scooting it back and forth across the metal. "Why do you take the bodies?" "I keep. Just keep. Not kill. Collecting." He had a sudden mental image of her dragging a corpse, the head and spine shot out, down to some hidden grotto. A new souvenir to pack away among a forest of mossy skeletons, their jaws gaping and withered bone reaching up as they settled into thick, slimy mud. His neighbors, the good inhabitants of Coleridge who strayed too far into the water, all gathered in some nightmare pit in the darkness below. Somehow the thought seemed worse than her simply killing. He wished he'd never asked. "But you did kill him. That man, didn't you? Is that why?" "You said you are not caring." "I know, but—" "No, not for collecting." She glanced back at the water behind her. She would be going soon, he knew. He hadn't heard the distant sound yet, but he could read it in her posture just the same. He'd seen Tiff sneak out enough times to sense it. He shifted, felt the crinkling of paper in his pocket. "Oh, I have one more thing for you," he said. He shifted on the piling as he pried it out of his pocket, then held it up to her. The drawing from class. She stared at it, face slack with wonder. She reached up and touched the page, slipped it out of his hands to examine it. She bent the corner and held it up to the sky. Her fingers smeared the ink where they touched the paper, warped it with their wetness. "If it gets wet, it'll fall apart. But that's okay, I can always make more. It's not great yet, but She shushed him. She studied the smear. Then she dipped her hand into the water and wiped her fingers across the tail he had drawn. The scales that he had painstakingly detailed for the majority of sixth period dragged into an indistinct blur. "I'm still working on those," he said. She turned to him, and color flickered in shooting stars across the dark of her eyes. She gripped the piling where he sat, pulled herself up to him, and pressed her mouth against his. Not a gentle thing. A hungry kiss filled with the taste of seawater and copper, her mouth open as if to drink him in, needle-edged teeth scraped against his lower lip. Her skin was cold, and the water soaking into his clothes made him shiver as he gripped the piling for balance, palms to metal. The naked shape of her pressed against him through his shirt, and she gripped the back of his neck to pull him closer. For a moment he understood that he couldn't pull away from her if he tried, that she could tear him apart if she chose to. Her thumbnail rested lightly against his throat, the webbing fanned against his skin.